contradicted by this picture. The last thing that Eulahia left me with as I got in my car and left, she looked at me and she said, "Please clear my husband's name."
But Janot wanted to do more than clear Norberto's name. He wanted to clear the name of all the jumpers. He believed that by finding out more about the life and death of one man, he could do this. He looked again at the reporter Cheney's article.
When Peter Cheney did his story of the falling man, he thought he could see the face of the man and that he could see details that were enough. Cheney looked at that picture, saw the black pants, and said that he was a kitchen worker. But in fact, most kitchen workers in New York, at least, don't wear black pants. They wear these black and white check pants. But in fact, Norberto was a chef and would not have been wearing black pants. So I don't know who it is. But I do know it's not Norberto Hernandez.
But Janot did agree with one thing in Cheney's article. The falling man had come from windows on the world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the greatest bar here located in Windows on the World in the World Trade Center. My name is Ernie Scott.
Since opening in 1976, Windows had become a New York institution. Customers loved the location, and so did the staff. Many of them had worked there for years, which had created an unusual camaraderie among them.
It was just a good feel. It was a good place. You know, certain nights there'd be an incredible sunset. You know, we'd all stand there and go, wow, isn't that cool? You know, just tiny things like that, dumb things. You know, people that you met, things that you did, birthdays that you celebrated with each other. People that, you know, just became really part of your extended family every day.
That family had been devastated by September the 11th, when 79 of its members had perished. But could one of them have been the falling man? Janot now hired a researcher to help him. They compiled a list of 22 possible names, based on age, race, and body type. They then asked surviving staff whether they would consider looking at the photos.
You're asking these people to look at something that could possibly be a colleague of theirs, that could possibly be a good friend of theirs. This is not something that you're not looking through a high school yearbook with them. This is something that you've really got to approach respectfully.
For anyone who had lost a friend or colleague, this was a painful request. Most took some time to consider the idea.
I felt like it was my duty and my responsibility to help identify this person if I could. There might be somebody out there who would want to know that their father was in this picture, or their brother, or their son.
I was very nervous before I looked at the pictures. I was hopeful and terrified at the same time that I would know who it was. I guess in some ways I did want to know if it was one of our people, but I really didn't want it to be one of my people.
Not everyone felt they could help. Michael Lamarnico had stood and watched helplessly as smoke, then flames, then people poured out of his restaurant.
My reaction to the photographs was I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to be in the room with them. I didn't want to handle them. I didn't want to participate in this.
Other Windows staff agreed to meet with the researcher, who brought with him the Falling Man series of photos.
It was actually very easy to eliminate a lot of people right off the bat, and literally just went one by one, thinking about, was it this person? Was it this person? And reaching a conclusion at the end that it wasn't anyone that I could positively identify.
As time passed, more and more names on the list were ruled out. Not the right body type, not the right shoes, not the right hair. Finally, there were just a few names left, and one last staff member to look.
We went through those pictures with a fine-tooth comb. It just it didn't resonate in my mind that it was anybody from our staff. And in a way I felt really bad about that, because you want to give somebody an answer. But in a way I was so glad it wasn't. So glad it wasn't.
The investigation had reached a dead end. America was moving on from September the 11th. The falling man was in danger of remaining in obscurity. Then, a breakthrough. The chef, Michael Lamarnico, agreed to look at the photos. A few days later, over lunch, he met with the researcher who had with him the pictures and the names that refused to go away.
No, it can't be Charlie Morrow. Can't be Wilder. What about Junior? Can't be Junior. What about Jonathan? And he stopped. Michael took a real close look. It took a while for him to be ready to speak to me about that.
Jonathan was Jonathan Briley. He was a sound engineer who looked after conferences and functions at the restaurant.
Jonathan fit the body type, the size, coloration of the person in that photograph, and it left the door open for me that there was a possibility that it was really Jonathan. Which, having known Jonathan and really admired him and liked him, and I thought he was just a terrific person, a good guy, a hardworking, dedicated, good guy with a great sense of humor, and a person who embodied an individual that I could call friend and respect. It offered me no comfort to think, oh, that's Jonathan. If it is Jonathan, I can only feel so bad for him having to have suffered the way he did. And, I miss him. He was somebody that I would have liked to have known forever.
Was Jonathan Briley the falling man? Every September the 11th, two giant shafts of light commemorate where the Twin Towers once stood. A dramatic image, but it gives no clue to the thousands who died that day. One man believed that a simple photo did. He now believed he knew who the man might be. Someone called Jonathan Briley. Now he needed confirmation from the family.
Of all the interviews, it was the most heartbreaking because Jonathan Briley's father was a preacher. He said, "I'd like to talk to you, but I can't." For my life's work, I tell people that they have to go on after tragedy. And then he said in that same impossible voice, "But I can't do this. I can't do it for myself."
The Reverend Briley suggested that Jeannot talk to Jonathan's older sister, Gwendolyn. She'd been especially close to Jonathan.
Jonathan Eric Briley was this person that just loved life, and that it was contagious. So when you were around him, you couldn't help but smiling and laughing. Every time Jonathan comes to mind, he's walking and he's talking and he's smiling, and he had this bounce in his step. He was one of these special people that could spread himself around the whole family, and we all got our piece of Jonathan.
In the days after the attack, the Brileys waited for his return. A phone call, anything. As the days passed, their hopes of finding him alive faded. Reverend Briley gathered the family in prayer.